All right. Hey there, guys. Wow. So, this is an exciting time. Exciting for two reasons. Because this is the first hybrid event that I have had the pleasure of participating in. A different time, right, where a lot of us are having to make sure that we are socially distanced. But I am so happy to be here with you, even if it is across the screen. So send us a shout out on social media if you are liking this so far. You can use the hashtag PPP, and also you can tag me at Lanice Lagan. So, on that note, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the third annual Passion for Prichard Prep Luncheon. I am Lanice Lagan, and I'm going to be your MC for the day. I am the, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock evening anchor at Fox 10 News. If you have had an opportunity to look at the program for the day and got a glimpse of my bio, you know that I can be long-winded. So I'm glad that you are in a comfortable chair because we're going to be here for a while. That was a joke. I'm sure you are laughing behind the screen. But when I was asked to participate in this event, I was very honored. As a mother of 2 children, I understand the importance of investing in our children. They are our future, and there is no better time than to make sure we are investing in them than right now. As I was heading in, my son says to me, "Here are a pack of Skittles, Mom." And I said, "I don't have time. I'll get them when I get back." And he says, "You don't have time for Skittles?" Because if you know me, you know I love Skittles. But it comes back to time. And I want you to think about, how is it that you're spending your time? Are you being present with that time? Are you trying to be perfect with that time? Children want you to be present. And so I thank you for being here. And before I continue to go on and get that rap signal that they would typically give me at the station, I'll continue on with the program because we have an awesome guest speaker and panel of experts that we'll be hearing from today. So as I mentioned, with health in mind, we have decided to do this program virtually. Although times have changed, the need for students at Prichard Preparatory School remain the same. So I want to thank you for choosing today to support this mission and our goal of making sure that our children are well cared for. It's evident that we share that passion to increase access to quality education, to prepare our youth for success, and to help shape and empower civic-minded, productive citizens. That's what each of you are investing in today by supporting Prichard Prep School. I want to recognize our amazing sponsors now who are helping to pave the way for collegiate success for our students at Prichard Prep, beginning with our presenting sponsor, Friends of Prichard Prep, platinum sponsors, Alan Franco, Overseas Hardwood Company, Spring Hill Toyota, Stewart and Watley Builders, and This is Alabama. Going now to our gold sponsors, Port City Metal Fabrication and the Zarzer family. Our silver sponsors are Bancorp South, Burr Foreman, China Doll Dixie Lily Foods, Iberia Bank, Infirmary Health, Dr. Norman H. McCrummon III, SAD Development, and Trustmark Bank. We thank all of you, and I definitely thank you for being patient with me because I'm reading this all from my iPhone. My son told me long ago, "Mom, you should get a bigger screen," and I said, "Nope, I got it." Well, we'll see. So our entire state is gearing up for the upcoming greatest rivalry in college football. You guessed it, the Iron Bowl. But we've decided to let you go ahead and get in on that action by participating in an Auburn versus Alabama fundraiser today. All right, so the top giver from each team will receive an exciting prize as well as some Alabama or Auburn selected bragging rights, right? And simply make a donation, and it will be, simply make a donation and it will be added to your team's total. Your name will not be displayed publicly. There is no minimum to participate because every penny counts towards a brighter future. We're going to announce the winning team and the top givers at the conclusion of this program. The top Alabama giver will receive an autographed photograph and a hat from Nick Saban, and the top Auburn giver will get an autographed photograph and a national championship hat from Gene Chizik. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce the principal of Prichard Prep, Ms. Portia Green, who's going to share more information about the school. And this is a woman who is going to be speaking from her heart, and had an opportunity to speak with her briefly about her passion for Prichard Prep. Please welcome Mrs. Green.
Good afternoon, everyone. I've been a part of Prichard Preparatory School now since 2011. This year, I had the privilege and the honor of being named principal to serve in that position. One of the many things that I love about Prichard Preparatory School is that we have parents and guardians that care. Parents and guardians who care to take the first step to make a difference in their child's life. Prichard Preparatory School allows children to pursue the best learning environment. These parents have invested in their children's education success by paying only a portion of tuition. However, we need additional funding to bridge the gap at Prichard Preparatory School. The full cost of Prichard Preparatory School is $8,150. Today, for this fundraiser, all proceeds will help fund the academic Bridge the Gap program. Our students are taught from the very beginning that education is their ticket to success. Your support today is helping to provide students with a strong academic foundation to transition into private college preparatory schools and magnet schools with the ultimate goal of attending college to become future leaders in our community. To offer you a better glimpse at our school, we will now share a brief video of our students and a testimonial from our former student, Dwayne Prince. I hope that you enjoy it. Thank you.
Everybody say it. One. Number one. Say number one. Let me see your major finger. It's so cute. I love it. Here we go. You ready? You ready? Oh. Show me 4 fingers. 4 fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, my favorite thing about Prichard Prep was mainly the education. And the teachers and the staff members were incredible, and the principal was one of the best principals I ever had. The most valuable lesson I ever learned at Prichard Prep was to treat people the way you want to be treated, because you never know what people are going through, and sometimes you got to be nice to everybody. My most favorite subject was math because really I love doing numbers and I love doing division, multiplication, just to be exact. And sometimes it's kind of challenging, but that's the thing I like to do. All the teachers that I ever had, they really prepared me because they taught me how to be respectful, how to be even smarter, how to push myself even greater, and how to love myself. I've really thought about being a medical doctor or a professional athlete. I recommend this school for kids that love learning and learning new things that's challenging for them to push themselves even greater.
Wow. What a precious group of students, motivated as well. And I think that we can agree the future for Dwayne Prince is definitely bright. Such an impressive young man. And this is just one example of the reason that we're here this afternoon. At this time, I want to recognize our remaining sponsors. We have bronze sponsors, Five Rivers Group, Morgan Stanley, Dean Waite Personal Injury, Attorney Doug and Eddie Terrison, Helmsling Leach Law Firm, Mel Washington, and Makeda Nichols of State Farm Insurance, Service Master Advanced Cleaning and Restoration, the Bill and Lana McNair Charitable Fund, the First Bank, and United Bank Charitable Foundation. Thank you all for being part of our program today and for your support. Before we begin with the program, I want to remind everyone of two things. I mentioned it once, but I want to mention it again because we're all about social media. If you are watching or you have a friend that might be interested in helping with this mission, please have them use the hashtag PPP Luncheon. So 3 capital P's and then Luncheon. Share your social media posts, and don't forget that the top Alabama and top Auburn giver is going to receive a prize, so make sure that those donations are coming in. The Give Now button, very easy for you to use. Go ahead and support your team, and then you can win too. Now it's the moment that we've all been waiting for. Surprisingly, it wasn't to sit here and listen to me chit-chat. But now we want to go ahead and welcome our moderator and ESPN college football play-by-play commentator, Taylor Zarzer, award-winning former Kansas City Chiefs and Crimson Tide quarterback Brody Croyle, and award-winning coach and the Auburn 2010 BSC National Championship team, Gene Chizik, 2020 Alabama Sports Hall of Fame inductee, and former Auburn running back Ronnie Brown. Last but not least, the moderator and ESPN college football analyst, Matt Stincham. They are your panelists for our discussion today.
Thank you very much. What a great introduction. We sure miss everybody here in person and can't wait until hopefully next year when you all are back in this room with us. It's such a powerful experience to look out and see the most successful people in Mobile and the difference they have made in all of these young lives, and to have all of those children here with us each year is such a thrill. So we miss you guys and look forward to having you back. We're going to go around the room today and have some fun and talk some college football. Before we do that, I'd like to recognize someone that was here last year, one of the greatest college football coaches of all time, who has passed away in the last year. And Coach Chizik, I know that Pat Dye was a great friend and almost like a family member to you. We sure do miss him.
Yeah, Taylor, first of all, let me say that I'm honored to be here today and just very blessed to be able to share with so many great guys up here. But yes, Coach Dye was a tremendous friend of mine. And, you know, when I think about him and I think about what stands out the most is his service to people. You know, his players loved him, but it wasn't just the players that loved him. It was how he treated everybody. He was a man's man. You know, I'll never forget when I first got to Auburn in 2002, as the defensive coordinator. He came into me one day and he said, you know, if you don't mind, I'd like to come in and talk football with you every so often. He says, if you don't want me to, you know, I'll stay in my lane. And I said, no, absolutely. I said, I value your opinion. And, you know, sometimes he didn't show up, but it was never after a loss. And that's when I knew this guy was real. Like, he knew if we didn't play well and we had a loss, that was the time he needed to be there. And, you know, long story short, that was who he is. And that's, you know, there's a saying out there that says, all gave some gave all. He gave it all for Auburn, for sure.
He was a big believer in this, for sure. And to see him here last year and see how moved he was by Prichard Prep was neat. And, you know, my partner in crime over here, Mr. Stinchcomb, and I do broadcast together, and he's notorious for his ability to have other voices come out of him. Who knew that Ronnie Brown did such a great Pat Dye impression? How about that?
It's true, yeah. He's a closet impressionist, for crying out loud. Yeah,
Don't give me that.
Well,
Teeing it up.
I think that if you watch college football and you watch the SEC, you probably have some idea of what Stinch is doing these days and what Chiz is doing and what I'm doing. We need to get up to speed on what's happening with Brody and Ronnie. We know a little bit about what's going on with Ronnie now that you've come back and been part of the Auburn Tigers radio broadcast, but I know that you're also in business in Atlanta. How's I guess, not retired life, a new life?
I tried the retired life, but I was a little bit too early. And it wasn't as fun as I thought it was. And also my wife probably didn't think it was as much fun either, because she was trying to figure out ways to get me out of the house. And I picked up on those hints. And so, I do the sideline radio with Auburn football, but then I also work in wealth management as well.
Yeah, and I know that you're enjoying that. Stinch, you're like that too. After you retired from football, you became busier than ever.
Yeah, well, and that's a function of probably the same motivations. And it's amazing how unsubtle the wife can be sometimes, where it's, you're here again all day today? We're going to have to find something for you to do somewhere else. And she did. On a daily basis.
Brody, we've known about your family's connection to such an incredible cause throughout your entire life, and I know that you're now spearheading that effort. Tell us what's happening up in the northern part of the great state of Alabama.
Yes, a lot of craziness in 2020 is what's happening this year. But, you know, we have a ministry called Big Oak Ranch that we take in orphaned, neglected, abused, abandoned kids, and we can make it really complicated, or I can just tell you we have 22, soon to be 22 homes that we put a godly man and woman in, and we give them 6 boys or we give them 6 girls, and we say they belong to you. Show them what God always intended for family to be. Show them what he ordained a godly man, a godly woman to be, and go live that life in front of them, because we believe what a child repeatedly hears and repeatedly sees, a lot like Prichard Prep, that if you can instill these things in these children at a young age, that they'll break a generational curse and they'll forever change a cycle. So that's what we've been doing for 46 years, and I'm blessed that out of all the people in the world God could have chose, he chose me and my wife to get to do it.
I can't imagine how fulfilling that is, and really amazed by what the Croyle family continues to do. So let's talk some football for a minute. Stinch, I don't know about you, but this has been the craziest year professionally for me. This is the first time we've been in the same place in a couple of months. We called the South Carolina-Tennessee game in the stadium, and ever since then, every week since then, if we've had a game that didn't get canceled, we have been doing it I've been doing it from my house, and you're doing it from a studio set up in your house. Unfortunately, we were supposed to call the Auburn-Mississippi State game with that set up this Saturday, but that has, of course, been postponed. Maybe they'll let us call it on December the 12th later in the season. But what do you make of what we're going through this year in college football?
What's becoming a trend is anybody that's a fan of their team doesn't want our crew to be assigned to it because a game gets canceled or postponed. That's kind of becoming something of a pattern. What's been weird more than anything else, I probably should start with saying, and I know everybody up here would agree, and folks that are watching this, I'm just grateful that we found a way for these kids and these programs to get out on the football field and be able to compete. We know how important it is to collegiate athletics in general, but specifically for the kids and the time that they've put in in what is a very small window of their lives. Eventually, you know, I don't know about y'all, but I don't participate in any church league football teams because they don't exist. I mean, once it's over, it's over. And so the fact that they're able to get out there and play is great. The way we have to broadcast is less than ideal, just in that we're not physically in the venue so much. And so it feels like you're broadcasting the game looking through a periscope, like you're in a submarine somewhere, which is not the easiest thing to do when there's 22 people running around out there and officials, you know, calling or not calling things all the time. So because of that, it has added a layer of intrigue, I think, from a broadcaster standpoint. Used to, you could watch and wonder, you know, why the play call. Now sometimes we watch and wonder what actually happened on the play. So it's
How is that between y'all two? Like, you know, you feed off other people's energy. Like, how is that in between y'all two?
Oh, it's real easy. Taylor talks, and then when Taylor comes up for air, I say, "That's a darn good point." Back to you,
I
my
think
man.
it's the opposite, but go ahead.
He told the same story before you got here.
Did you notice that? Yeah, we were already at commercial. They've already kicked the extra point, and he's still going. No, it is difficult, no question. In all seriousness, I would like to think we've got great chemistry, but when you're not in the same place, it has been a challenge. But fortunately, we're pretty good at finishing each other's sentences. We need to get Ronnie on a Zoom since he's on the sideline. He can tell us whether it was a first down or not.
That's right.
That would be helpful. Ronnie,
If I think it's a first down, I don't know. I can't see because, you know, they extended the sideline, so they tucked me in a little corner as well because of social distancing rules.
I want to ask Chiz about coaching in this environment with all your buddies that you're connecting with in a second, but Ronnie, that's a great point Stench made. All three of you played for a number of years in the NFL, and as a lifelong Dolphins fan, thank you for introducing the Wildcat to the NFL, and I think that's the last time the Dolphins made the playoffs was when you were at quarterback, actually, that year. But almost every great college and pro player you talk to says, man, I would give anything to go back and play more college football. And when you're missing out on a game, as Stench is talking about this weekend, those are Saturdays you can't ever get back.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest part of it. You know, when I left to go to college, you know, you talk about college football and what it does. You know, it's entertaining, but at the same time, it gave a lot of guys some purpose and intention. But then when you're surrounded by coaches like Coach Chizik and, you know, others that are so involved in seeing the best interest of the kid, there becomes purpose behind that, and then even just the discipline and the structure that a lot of us need. And a lot of times, you know, there are things that we don't know, and we don't know that we don't know. And so those things are answered, and, you know, you just need the right person to be around you. And, you know, football does so many things, and it creates so many opportunities, but at the same time, you know, it's still a game, and there's so many life lessons that you can learn through sport in general. And, you know, when you're in the locker room with these guys, you know, those guys become your brothers. Everything else is out of the window. It doesn't matter, you know, where we grew up, you know, how we grew up, what color you are, how tall you are, how short you are. You know, all of those things out of the window. We have one goal, and that's to figure out how we can get across this goal line and stop them from getting across the goal line. So I think the purpose and the impact of football, it goes well beyond, you know, those 100 yards. Or I guess you could say 120 yards or so. But, you know, really it goes beyond that, and the effects of football. You know, for me, that was probably one of the biggest things in life, just in terms of the people that I've met and the encounters that I've had. You know, football was great. I enjoyed it. It was my passion, but I also learned my purpose. But, you know, the people that I've met through that's been, you know, I think the biggest thing for me is the impact that the other people have made.
So well said. Chiz, what do you think? I know you're talking to all your buddies. Is this just the strangest year to ever be a football coach?
It is, Taylor, but one thing I want to say about, just a quick comment about Ronnie, that's what's so great about coaching, is you watch these guys come in at 18, and you said it, Ronnie, they don't know what they don't know. And 4 years later or 5 years later, and you know this, Brody, right? They walk out with this unbelievable 5-year lesson or 4-year lesson in not just football, but life. And then you sit there years later, and I watch guys like Ronnie, who were not just great players, but they go on after this and do stuff that's so worthy. That's why I love coaching. I just had to throw that in. Not trying to hijack the mic. But But yeah, in talking to my coaching buddies, this is the most challenging year by far that any of them have ever encountered. I actually had a conversation 2 weeks ago with a friend of mine who coaches the offensive line, Stench, you'll like this, in the Big Ten. It was the Monday before they played their very first game. And I texted him jokingly and I said, hey, have you learned your players' names yet? Because they're at a new school. This is a new staff. He texted me back on Monday before they played their first game and said, this is the first time I've had my entire 5 starting offensive linemen in the room together. That is the challenge that is being presented. And it's incredible. And it goes back to coaches having to be able 5 and 6 months ago to have a great vision for how they want, who had the best plan. Not only the best plan to keep the players safe, to convince the players that you have to for yourself, create this bubble that's going to allow you to continue to play. You have to convince all the coaches that they have to do the same. Every man's important. You can't lose a guy. Then there's the strategical part of this too, right? What happens if my coordinator goes down? Sam Pittman is going to play a game this week at Florida when Arkansas is on a roll. He can't be there. He just got COVID. So all of these things had to be addressed 5 months ago. If you're addressing them now, you're 5 months too late. So you had to have all these strategic things already in line. And to be honest with you, the guys who have done that the best have probably put themselves in a chance to succeed. But without question, Taylor, the most challenging time. And I'll be honest with you, in a lot of ways, it's not fun for these guys at all. Because you already have the added pressure of what you have to do in college football. Now this on top of it, very challenging.
Yeah, we were visiting with Lane Kiffin a few weeks ago before we did an Ole Miss game, and he said, I jokingly said the same thing about some of his players, and he said, honestly, I don't know some of their names. I've never been around them. I've never been in the same place with them. It's his first year there, especially on the defensive side of the ball. He knows what number they are, but he's not sure what their entire names are because they have not built the traditional amount of chemistry that you would being in the same environment so often. You were talking about the teams that do it the best. Alabama, the beat goes on with Nick Saban as it typically does. Brody, Stench and I were driving in here today. He was saying, can you imagine how much Brody Croyle would have loved being Mac Jones right now in this offense?
My body would. I joke and tell people, I'm 70 years old when it comes physically. I've had 11 surgeries, 3 broken vertebrae, dislocated jaws, punctured lungs, ruptured spleens, and a partridge in a pear tree. But if you look at me, I look more like a punter, like I wasn't designed to be hit by people like them. But I tell people I was just dumb enough to keep getting up. Like that was, I guess, my claim to fame. But, people ask that a lot. Like, what would it have been like playing? And it goes back to what Ronnie was just saying. Like, I wouldn't trade who I played for and the experience that I had for anything. I really wouldn't. And that's hard to say when you were recruited by Dubose, you played for Fran, you practiced for Price, and you finished with Shula, okay? So that's hard to say that when that's the case, but there's so many things about that life that prepared you for the next phase of life. And how to deal with people, how to deal with change, how to deal with different schemes, how to deal with different personalities. And, I'm sure all of us at some point have been asked, would you let your kids play football? I'm asked that a lot. And unequivocally, I say absolutely. Because the things that football teaches you, not about winning and losing only, or not about playing in front of 100,000 people or getting to play in front of millions of people, but the things it teaches you about life, you can't learn anywhere else. Like just from a leadership position, you have to, I tell people this, when you're playing quarterback, like I know you get all the praise and you also get all the blame, no matter what. I was one of the few that, I'm living on 2 Daniel Moores from the same year. I'm living on 2 Sports Illustrateds from the same year. One saying how great we were in Bama's back to you're awful, and it's like it's this constant thing of, how good you are and how bad you are. But the things it teaches you about leadership, that from a quarterback's perspective, like if the offensive line doesn't block, it's like, what do you do? If running back doesn't pick up the right deal because you didn't communicate it correctly, or if a receiver's having a bad day. There's so many things that you realize about a team that have to take place for you to win. And I think about our kids, I think about my kids, I think about these Prichard Prep kids and the things that they're being taught of just, you can't do life alone. You know, if you asked our kids, like, what's the one thing you've heard Mr. Brody say? It'll be, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. And there's so many things that Ronnie hammered on, that you walk in and you don't know. You walk in, you don't know these people. You walk in and you might be a different position, a different color, a different background, a bit different whatever. But it's amazing that you all have one common goal. And man, it just, I wouldn't trade anything about it. I would have taken that whole thing y'all said about being Mac Jones. It seems well, but I'm just answering the way I feel like I'm supposed to.
I love it. That's a fantastic answer.
I'll take all that back. You know what? On second thought, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Why not?
Number one in the country. Never mind. That was great and all. Yeah, I mean, I've heard you say the same thing, though. I mean, because in the 90s, Georgia was going through some similar type situations as he went through just over 10, 15 years ago. And now Georgia, I know today may not be the greatest Georgia day after what happened this weekend, but the last handful of years have been the greatest stretch Georgia football's had in 40 years. But I've heard you say the same thing. You wouldn't trade any of that.
Is this live or is this from a couple of weeks ago?
This is live.
Shaped my response. No, it's true. All the stuff that Coach and Ronnie and Brody have touched on, because to me, it goes beyond the box score. And, you know, who wouldn't want, Mac Jones puts together some pretty good box scores, and there's some pretty good looking one-loss records. And, of course, you want to win the championships and all that other stuff. But this sport, you know, it has to matter more than just that. And it's not an individual sport. And so, like when you point out, it's easy for a quarterback or even a running back in some instances to be like, well, wouldn't you like to play in fill-in-the-blank run offense and just pile up all those yards? And then you think back to your experiences. And so, like when I was at Georgia, and, you know, we went 6-5 my freshman year, and then my sophomore year, we didn't even go to the bowl game. And so to answer your question, would I trade places? Absolutely yes. I would trade in a minute. I would swap all those relationships and coaches, and I just want the one-loss record, right? Just to play in one Sugar Bowl. All those good buddies that stood next to me at my wedding and the guys that are still my best friends to this day, and all those relationships. And it seems like, wouldn't it be easy, right, to just swap it? And it's hard for folks, I think, that haven't had that experience. It really is. And I wish that they could. I really wish that the experience that we all had, and it wasn't always glorious from a win-loss standpoint or from a performance standpoint. There's not a great analogy anywhere else. There's not an analog somewhere else in life that's the same as, I think, what we experience. There's maybe a few, you know, maybe in the military, where that bond is created and it goes beyond just the outcome of whatever it is that you were pushing towards and the relationships that you build. That's invaluable, and it goes beyond a Wikipedia page or a sports almanac or whatever else it is. Those relationships kind of live on after you had the experience, and that's something that you just would never swap. Maybe a Heisman Trophy. I don't know. It's tough.
You would have made a perfect Heisman, without a doubt.
He was
an offensive line.
Yes, he was unequivocally the best offensive lineman in college football his last year in school. But I don't think that the Heisman Trust was noticing you up front. They like the quarterbacks and sometimes the running backs. All right, let's go around the room real quick. Chiz, let's start with you because you're dialed in watching all these SEC teams each and every week. I think that we've been asking these questions a lot of different years, and we're back to asking it again. Can anybody in the SEC beat Bama? SEC championship game included.
Obviously, right now, as it turns out after this week, you would think that the team that has the best opportunity would be Florida. But Alabama is playing at such an incredible level right now, and they've got so many great skilled guys. I mean, the fact that Jalen Waddle went down, who was probably the most exciting player in college football, and I hate it for the young man. I mean, that's just so hard to see. But it's next man up mentality, and all of a sudden the next guy up is, he's having record-setting days as well. It's just like they just keep pumping them out. You know, one goes down, another one comes up, or somebody pops up that you never heard of before. But, you know, the trigger guy, as we all know, that's where it starts, right? And Mac Jones is playing out of his mind right now as far as accuracy and just confidence. You know, the whole offensive line is incredible at Alabama. No one ever talks about them enough, Stench, but we know that without those guys, and without guys like you, Georgia couldn't have had a 6-5 record that year. Right. So, but you know the importance of that, and they're just they're too explosive on offense. Because for somebody to beat Alabama, that means you're going to have to outscore them, and right now that's a tough out.
You know, Ronnie, I'm sure there's a team you can think of that you would love to see beat the Crimson Tide in Tuscaloosa, regardless if that's Auburn or not. As we were preparing to do the game this week, I was thinking Auburn in the next year and a half has a real opportunity, especially with all the players they have coming back next year.
Yeah, they have a lot of young talent, especially on the offensive side of it. You know, you have a quarterback who's in his second year. Obviously, the thing that you can't coach is experience. And so having a guy who, you know, is getting the playing time, who's maturing before our eyes, I think that's a huge part of it. You look at the running back, who's a true freshman, who's doing a really good job this season. And so I think they've put some people in places that have an opportunity. But at the same time, with opportunity, it comes, you have to do it too. And so that's going to be a tall task. As we talk about this season, the biggest part about it is, you know, the power and the importance of depth, whether it's COVID related, whether it's injury related, because you didn't have as extended off season. And so you're seeing more guys get injured, unfortunately. So that's really one of the big things is, you know, how well or how much depth do you have and what's the quality of those guys. As we noted, you know, over in Tuscaloosa, they've kind of built that house where the second and third guy, you know, they're still capable of, you know, going to most any other team and having an opportunity to, you know, bid for playing time, if not start. And so when you talk about Auburn and the young team, there is opportunity, but, you know, at the same time, there has to be maturity in that. And guys just have to go in and understand that, you know, this is one of those tall tasks. And we all see it. You know, the guys in the locker room, you get a chance to watch those guys on TV, and you're realistic. You know, fans, sometimes we get excited because this is our team. But, you know, guys in the locker room, when you're sitting there, you're like, man, this guy's pretty dang good. And after you run into him a few times. And so really that's the biggest part is, you know, translating that, what you do at practice into a game situation. And not all guys can do that.
Brody, as fans and media, we love these conference-only schedules. Mm-hmm. Would you like to play more than 8 conference games? Would you like a 9 or a 10-game conference schedule?
No. I always enjoyed the North Texas games and like the Western Carolinas and get some yards and some touchdown passes, you know. No, SEC's tough. Like SEC is really tough no matter what game. I mean, I can remember playing Mississippi State. And every year, it just seemed like they hit harder than anybody else.
And going to Starkville is no joy.
No. Like, it's just like you hearing them cowbells, and so many of the guys over there, it's close enough Tuscaloosa that they wanted to come to Tuscaloosa, and it didn't work out. Whatever the situation, I just remember that game. And then going to Ole Miss, like, I mean, there's really no game where you go, oh, yeah, that one's easy. And not that you're looking for easy, but at some point in time, you kind of want just a little bit more. But you know, speaking of what you said about it's a young, talented football team, there's something Herm Edwards. I have tons of Hermanisms, I guess is what you would call them. I don't know if y'all know Herm or not. Yeah. Herm is one of my favorite human beings of all time. And he walked in and he goes, yeah, everybody says we're this young, talented football team. Got tons of potential. He said, I want every one of y'all to hear this. Potential will get you fired. And it did. Every one of us. Like every one of us. But, you know, I guess my claim to fame is we were the building blocks to building, you know, dynasties after that because Nick Saban came and has won everything as soon as we left. And as soon as I left, we had a high draft pick and we got Patrick Mahomes. So it all worked out, you know.
Alabama and the Chiefs.
Foundational piece, you know.
I think I should be a huge part of that, too, because I was a part of that Dolphins team.
That's right.
Who didn't get Drew Brees, who was responsible for sending Saban to Alabama.
You're the last great quarterback the Dolphins had, Ronnie, and you don't even play quarterback. So
I never played quarterback. That's the funny part. Not even in high school or elementary, but.
All right, we have a real treat for you guys today. We have the former head coach of the Gators, Steve Spurrier, who would like to make a few comments on the win over Georgia.
The Gators won, and I wasn't surprised. Some people were, but saw it coming. And people say 2020 is a weird year, but Gators beat Georgia, so that seems pretty normal to me. And Dan's he's fired up about it and so forth. And they're going to play in the SEC championship game. That's who I think is going to make it in there. I don't know about you, Coach Chiswick. Coach play. He's a Gator, and he was down there, and he's got those aren't Gator skin shoes, are they? We don't wear them on our feet. That's disrespectful. But anyhow, you got to beat the dogs, and everything is right with the world from where I sit.
We also have Kirby Smart on the line with us now via satellite. Kirby, you're struggling to find the right quarterback this year.
I'm sorry, I'm just, I couldn't hear you. I got the Masters coverage on in the background. Did you say something about quarterback? Because we played good defense, and when we got all our players are hurt right now. And anyway, I think Bubba Watson's going to win the Masters. My favorite food's probably Chick-fil-A sandwiches. What else you want to talk about other than quarterback? Hey, Ronnie, you want to play quarterback for us?
Coach Smart a little defensive right now. We appreciate both of them for being with us here today. On a more serious note, Coach Chiswick, I have a question for you, and Mr. Stinchcomb has rejoined us now. We've been talking about this a lot. There are some coaches every year that are on the hot seat, that are in trouble. You lived through this. Do you think that what we're going through in 2020, financially, health-wise, etc., is going to impact whether or not these coaches come back in 2021?
I think it will have an impact. I think that this were a normal year, then coaching changes would be more likely. It just goes with the territory, and that's the tough part about college football, NFL, right? You're here today, gone tomorrow. That's just the nature of the game. But economically, right now, these universities are they're in trouble. And you're talking about $40 to $50 million losses for schools, and that's a lot of money to overcome. And then I don't think people really understand what has to happen economically to make a coaching change. So typically, you're going to pay the head coach anywhere these days from $5 to $15 million. That's just one guy. And then you have a whole staff right now. And you add up all their salaries plus all of the peripheral people, that's another $5 to $7 million. And then you got to convince a new guy to come and convince him that you're going to give him an opportunity and he's not going to end up like the one before him. So to convince that guy to come, now you're talking about paying him a $15 to $20 million contract, and then all his people. So when it's all said and done, to actually get somebody out and bring somebody in, you're looking at another potentially $30 to $40 million prospect. And with the deficits in where they are money-wise right now, I'm not going to say it won't happen. It's just going to be much more difficult.
You feel that way too, Stinch?
Well, I think that the hard part is that we'll say coming into the year that from a mindset standpoint, well, this is an anomaly. This is a COVID year, but the thing that I have to wonder is that we quickly lose sight of that. We lose sight of the fact that maybe a starting quarterback wasn't available, and now all of a sudden it's wow, this is a fantastic win. I'm thinking about like Notre Dame, Clemson, for example, right? The backup's a really good player, but he's a backup for a reason, right? So they weren't necessarily full strength. Notre Dame's one of the best teams in the country, and maybe they are. But the point being is the perspective. We lose it really quickly, and given the way the season's kind of unfolding and the fact that it's an all-conference slate, and you're looking in the SEC East, there are 6 teams with 2 wins right now, and a lot of them don't have a lot of upward mobility from a schedule standpoint. how patient, and is there somebody out there with a checkbook that will show up and say, what does it take to make this change? And you know what, it's like Coach says, the nature of the business has changed a lot this year. I don't know that collegiate athletics has always hinged firmly to reality, and there's a chance that maybe changes still occur, although I'm hard-pressed to think that it won't be diminished, the opportunity for that to actually happen because of the economic climate that all these athletic departments are finding themselves in.
Yeah, and it is. It's going to be fascinating, and there's some, one guy in particular that comes to mind. There's several that come to mind, but one that comes to mind is Will Muschamp at South Carolina. Good friend of yours that played at Georgia, a teammate of yours. His offensive coordinator was your quarterback, Mike Bobo. And I know those guys are close friends of yours, and both of them right now, South Carolina fans are frustrated. They just had a horrible performance last Saturday night against Texas A&M, and I'm sure their fan base wants to see victories. You went through this, Brody. Your last year at Alabama, the fans don't want to pay to watch that. They want to pay to watch something else, but it's very difficult right now to pull the trigger on that, just given the current climate.
Yes. I mean, it's just an interesting year. I wish there was some big magic wand that we had that could have projected or say what's coming next. But, you kind of are in that place that they both hit on, that there's really nothing more you can really go down any path of it other than it's going to be interesting to see how the year unfolds, what next year looks like. And I mean, you're already seeing it in basketball and NBA, and you're already seeing it in the NFL. So, I mean, I don't think we're out of it. I don't think these people that believe that just because we had an election that all of a sudden now all this goes away. It's still here.
I would agree with that. One thing that has maintained are the relationships that you build on the football field. And as we close up today, guys, I just wanted to get a word from each of you about this, starting with you, Ronnie. I work for SiriusXM on top of working for ESPN, and we had this great meeting yesterday with an all-hands meeting, and our new CEO, she said, in this time where we're really trying to treat everybody better, we don't want to have an event where we honor people that look differently than us. We want to create a culture where we all treat each other the same way. I know, as you said, the football field is one of the few places in the world where that happens. I know that you're proud to be here today to see that it happens at a place like Prichard Prep as well, but just talk about that connection that you've made on the football field with so many different people.
Yeah, I think Brody said it best. I think we're all here to do life with people. And I think that's the example of sport. You get a chance to meet people from all different walks of life and backgrounds, and you come together with a common goal. And there's power in teaming because none of the other things really matter once you hit the field. And so, when you get on the field, you have one obligation, and that's to try to win. And so that's for everybody to hold their own, everybody to be accountable, and for all of us to communicate. And I think, if we follow that example, then through leadership and, through experience and through conversation, I think we all get better. And I think that's the thing that, that I learned through sport. Some of the most influential people in my life were coaches growing up, whether it was Pee Wee ball all the way through high school. I still keep in contact with my high school coaches, both baseball and football. My college teammates were guys that were in my wedding, probably one of the most important days of my life. And so as I look at all the milestones that I've been able to do, it wasn't about, those actual things. It was about the people that I got to share those experiences with. And so if we all take that mentality, I think that's the biggest part of it, and realizing not only who we are, but whose we are. And if we do that and realize, our purpose in life is to do life with other people, and try to figure out how we can make each other better, hold each other accountable, as Prichard Prep, and other, I think people, that are involved in life. I think if we all kind of take that mentality, figure out, I don't have to do this, I get to do this. I think that's one of the leading things in, how to make us better. We start with communities, we start with schools, and then those things just continue to branch out and touch more people, and we can all just do a better job of that.
Stench, there's nothing like a huddle.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I wish there was a way to allow other folks outside of the sport that didn't get to participate in it or whatever to have that same experience. I wish that teams playing football now would actually huddle, but that's more from a broadcasting standpoint than anything else. It's the idea of the locker room, that roster, and Ronnie, you kind of hit on it too. It's guys that you talk about diversity, where it's not just the backgrounds and it's not just how you look, but it's even skill set. There's something for everybody on a football field. I mean, there's a kicker who does nothing other than this thing. You swing your leg, you kick a ball. It's unlike anything else on the football field, but they have a role on the team. And then you've got guys like me who I cannot run fast. I cannot catch. I cannot throw a spiral to this day. Maybe we can work on that after this thing. There's other than getting somebody's way. That was my job description. Impede this person's progress. And if you do it well enough, we'll let you play on the team. There's not a lot of sports like that where the whole object of the game you never even touch. If I ever touched the ball, that's the worst thing that could have happened. And yet, I had a role on that team. And the idea and that's why I think it's the ultimate team sport. There are no clear out plays. Everyone has to depend on everybody else. And because of that, it's this true meritocracy where it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we have a lot of stuff in common from our backgrounds. It doesn't matter where we came from and all those other things. It's either we can do this together or we can't. And because we're on the same team, we're charged to do this together. And you don't have time, frankly, to focus on all the stuff that isn't really that important. And to me, that is the beauty of not just the sport, but the idea of the huddle or the locker room and the way that this game happens to be played. There's elements of that in the rest of our lives. And I think that's something that everybody up here's touched on.
Kind of jump in right there. To me, it's an accountability to something greater than yourself. Like it is straight up an accountability to something greater than yourself. And I would say everybody sitting up here probably has this moment. I always talk about moments in life. There's always moments in games that define the outcome, but there's moments in life that kind of shape and mold who you are too. And I just won the starting job at Alabama, and we were playing South Florida at Legion Field, the last game that was ever played there, and we won like 42-19 or something, but we were supposed to win, And I played okay. I think a couple of touchdown passes, but I threw an interception. I missed some hots. I missed some reads. And we're sitting in the film room, and as coaches do, we rewound every bad play 75 times. And we skipped the touchdown passes, and it's like, and I'm sitting in there, and the interception, the coach rewound it 7 times without saying a word. Before finally on the 8th time I went, Coach, I get the point. We won the game. Can we move on to the next play? He literally cut the film off, and we're sitting there in darkness. He asked all the other quarterbacks to leave the room. We sat there for what felt like 3 minutes. It was probably maybe 10 seconds before he finally said these words that were a moment in my life that made me decide to say, you know what, there's something greater. That talent isn't just going to get me over. He said, son, if you remember anything I say, he said, let this be it. He said, I don't care how many people you play in front of. He said, I don't care if you're on the practice field. I don't care if you're in the film room. I don't care if you're in the weight room. I don't care if you're playing in front of everybody at Bryant-Denny Stadium. He said, you play to a standard every single day. He said, whatever you think is the best that you're capable of, he said, you play to it every single day. Will you reach it? He said, not a chance. He said, but you shoot for it every single day. He said, if you think I'm talking about just football, he said, you're wrong. And it literally was instant. Like all these things that now my idiot dad that was trying to teach me my whole life, it's like, oh, all those things make sense. Oh, all those things make sense. But what it really taught me was, you know what, if you play to your standard and everybody else decides to have accountability to something greater than themselves, called a team, called an organization, called a university, called, as Herm would say, playing for your last name, now all of a sudden, if everybody plays to that standard, doesn't matter if you're in the huddle, doesn't matter if you're trying to build relationships, and you bring that to the table, so many of the things we're struggling with right now in life, they go away.
Thank you for sharing that. That's a powerful story. Well, I know you like to do this on social media, so we're going to end with some words of wisdom, if we can, please.
Oh, that's a good one, Taylor. You are what you repeatedly do. You are what you repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence becomes not a single act, but a habit. Translated simply, do things right all the time, and things will turn out right. Preach.
Amen to that. Well, we can't thank the people at Prichard Prep enough for having us here. It is so fulfilling to each and every one of us to be here each year. And I'm proud to be from this city, and I'm proud of all the people that I've known for so long that have made such a difference in this community and how they're changing it for the good. So thank you so much again for having us today.
Just a lot for me that I learned in listening to your individual stories, the importance of leadership, what you learn being on a football team, never giving up, always making sure that you are accountable and held accountable. So I appreciate your stories, and I thank you for taking time out of your busy days to speak to Prichard Prep and the community that is supporting to make sure the students get those lessons as well. Back to my 10-font iPhone. I'm sure you all enjoyed listening to our panel discussion. A lot of inspiration from that conversation. Again, I want to thank our partners, the Steeple on St. Francis, Airwind Creative, Jordo Company, Graphic Design, Sound Technician, Josh Harkins, Moe's Original Barbecue, Pro Legal Copy, Swell Fundraising, Certus Coffee, Battle House Hotel, UMS Right, Student Volunteers, and Dapper Deliveries. You guys helped to make this event possible, so thank you for that. Before we return to our work days, or in my case, start, I want to announce the Iron Bowl Challenge winner. So, we were able to generate a lot of response on this on social media. You have the Tigers against the Crimson Tide. So who do you think won? Coach, you want to guess who won the Iron Bowl game that we were playing?
What year?
Today.
I'll say Auburn.
Auburn, yes. Good guess. Auburn is the winner for our Iron Bowl challenge that we were playing virtually today. The top Alabama giver was Kelly Williams. Thank you, Kelly. And the top giver for Auburn, Mark Callahan. But again, and Mark Callahan is a former player. Yes?
Mark Callahan?
Mark. Well, that's an awkward silence that we'll move on from. Okay, so in any event, congratulations to our winners, and thank you guys for stopping by. But before we close, we would like to get some final remarks from Prichard Prep School Board Chairman Abe Harper. Abe, come save me, owner of Harper Technologies. Thank you.
First and foremost, I have the privilege of chairing the board for this phenomenal school and this phenomenal group of individuals. I want to say to these gentlemen, thank you for your time, for your influence, and for your impact. The words of wisdom that you guys spoke today are truly, they're impressions, right? These are life lessons that our kids can't get away from. Character, excellence, persistence, pursuit of self. Those are things that you can't just teach in an academic environment, but we have to teach in a real life, real world environment, and no better environment than COVID to teach that in. I have a couple of presentations I want to make before we get out of here. Miss Lenice, thank you so much for being our MC. Thank you. And I'd like to ask for Miss Bumpers, Miss Dunaway, Miss Little, Miss Inge, and Miss Green to come up as well for me, please. And Mr. Pappas. While they're making their way up, for anyone out there watching and attending that doesn't know, this is the team that makes things happen for our school. This is a mixture of my board members and a mixture of my executive team from the school that go to battle every day to make sure that our kids are set up for excellence and that they're set up for future opportunities despite the inconsistencies of COVID. One of the things that 2020 has taught us is that nothing is promised and nothing is guaranteed, but the one thing that I can say with the certainty is that they've gone to the mat every day to make sure that these children have the best opportunity they can to succeed in life and to succeed academically. So for that, I want to give them a token of appreciation, and I thank each and every one of you for tuning in. For everyone that's watching, I do want to bookmark us with one thing on our way out. Please catch up with us on social media if you want to contribute to our mission. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook, Prichard Prep School. You can find us on the internet at www.prichardprep.com. You can reach us by phone, 251-380-7220, and you can find us on Twitter, Prichard Prep. Thank you all so much. Gentlemen, again, thank you for the phenomenal time today, and we'll look forward to seeing you all next year, right back here, same place, same time, for Passion for Prichard Prep at the Steeple.